Ever get that, like, creepy feeling? Like something's just off about a person.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like a sixth sense almost.
That's what we're talking about today, the Chris Watts case. But not the usual stuff. We're going deep on his mistress,
Mm.
Nicole Kessinger.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, you gave us this true crime podcast, and it really picks apart all the weird stuff around her. It's a wild ride.
It is. Everyone thinks they know the story, the murders and all that, but this digs into, well, the digital stuff, like her internet searches and all the times her story changes. It really makes you wonder.
Yeah, right off the bat, the podcast drops his bombshell. Nicole was searching for Chris A&D Shanann Watts online, like months before she even met Chris.
Crazy, right? She said she had no clue he was married, but the DA's office, they confirmed it. Her phone shows searches for both of them back in 2017, way before they even started their affair.
So what was she doing? Was she, like, obsessed with them before she even knew Chris?
It's so strange. And then the podcast goes through the timeline of their whole, affair. And the thing is, Nicole's story, it just keeps changing. At first, she says she told Chris to go back to Shanann, try to fix things. But then at the same time, she's looking at wedding dresses online and Googling, get this, will a man marry his mistress?
That's not exactly the advice you'd give if you wanted them to get back together.
No, not really. And then there's the whole thing about visiting the Watts house. First, she's all, I never went there. But then later, she admits to going multiple times.
It's hard to keep up with her story,
And
honestly.
it really is. And then the podcast gets really creepy. It talks about the night of the murders. Nicole has zero alibi, and her phone pinged near the Watts house that morning. Early. Like really early.
And there's that neighbor who saw a truck that looked a lot like Nicole's around the same time, right?
Exactly. And to top it all off, her phone went totally silent for hours that morning. Which is, well, the podcast said that was super unusual for her. She was always on her phone.
So maybe she was there, helping Chris clean up or, I don't know, get rid of evidence or something?
It's possible. I mean, it's all circumstantial, but still.
Yeah. And then there are those phone calls between Nicole, Chris, and the detective right after Shanann went missing. It was like back and forth, back and forth.
Oh, yeah, the podcast actually suggests that Nicole might have been listening in on Chris's call with the police.
Seriously, why would she do that?
Who knows? Maybe to see what they knew. Or to tell Chris what to say.
That's chilling.
Yeah.
And then there were the Google searches, the ones Nicole deleted from her phone. The podcast mentioned searches about the Watts family, stuff about OxyContin and pregnancy, and even about whether the police can track texts.
Yeah, those searches are definitely concerning, especially since Shanann had been sick, right? During that trip to North Carolina, while Chris was back in Colorado with Nicole.
Makes you wonder if something else was going on, something we don't know about.
Exactly. It's like, what was really happening behind the scenes?
It's like every little detail just makes things weirder, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And then the podcast brings up this security footage, right, from that neighbor. Some people think it's Nicole at the Watts house on the morning of the murders.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty grainy, but there's a figure there, and it kind of does look like her. Plus, it would line up with, the phone ping and her showing up late to work that day.
Right. She didn't clock in until way after everyone else. And the podcast, well, it doesn't actually say she was involved, but it definitely makes you think, what if she was there?
Yeah, what was she doing there? Was she, like, in on it, or did Chris, like, trick her somehow?
Yeah. Was she a willing participant or was she manipulated? It's tough to say.
We keep coming back to this question of her motivation, right?
Okay.
And the podcast, it throws out this other theory. It came from someone who claimed to know Nicole personally. They said she had a history of, like, violence. Even claimed that she stabbed them with a kitchen knife years ago.
Wow. That's, well, we can't really verify that, can we? But it does make you wonder if there's more to her past than we know.
Yeah, if there's a side to her we haven't seen.
It's a little unsettling to think about, and it makes you think about the big question again. Why didn't anyone investigate her?
Right, like, why not?
The podcast talks about that too. One idea is that because Chris confessed, the police figured that was it. Case closed. They didn't, need to look any further.
But some people aren't satisfied with that, right?
Yeah.
There are just too many questions about what Nicole knew and what she might have done.
Yeah, and the podcast gets that. It even talks about some of the more, I guess you'd say, speculative theories, like the rumors about Nicole's father.
Oh, yeah, the rumors that he had connections to law enforcement.
Exactly. It's all just rumors, of course, but it makes you wonder if there was something else going on behind the scenes, something we don't know about.
This is what makes this podcast episode so good, though. It doesn't just, like, give you the facts and that's it. It makes you think.
Yeah, you have to really think critically about the information.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle, but some pieces are missing. We might never have all the answers, but it's that search. That's what keeps you hooked.
And that's true crime for you. Exploring the dark side of people, trying to make sense of it all.
It's crazy, right? This case still has people talking, even after all this time.
I know, right? It really shows you the power of true crime. People want to know the why. Why did this happen? And with Nicole, we just don't have all the answers.
Yeah, and this podcast, it leaves you feeling, I don't know, kind of unsettled. Like the story isn't really over.
Yeah, it makes you think. I mean, Chris is in prison, but we still don't know how much Nicole knew or what she did.
The podcast doesn't try to wrap everything up in a bow. It's like, here's what we know, here's what we don't know, and it's like, go figure it out yourselves.
Yeah, I like that. It doesn't pretend to have all the answers. You have to, like, do your own research, come to your own conclusions.
Yeah, so we've gone through all this evidence, all these different theories. What does it all mean? What can we, the listeners, take away from this whole deep dive?
Well, for me, it's a reminder to think critically. Don't just take everything at face value. You have to question things, dig a little deeper, especially with a case like this.
Yeah, because even with a confession, there might be more to this story. Other people involved. Hidden motives.
Yeah.
Things we don't know. We might never find out everything, but even trying to figure it out, it can be, I don't know, eye-opening.
Absolutely. Things aren't always black and white. Sometimes the truth is, well, it can be hard to face.
We really encourage everyone listening to check out this podcast, read through the documents, watch Nicole's interviews, decide for yourself.
Yeah, don't just take our word for it. Go see what you think.
This case, with all its twists and turns, just goes to show that, well, the search for truth, it never really ends.
And that's what makes these stories so interesting, right? They make
Yeah.
us think, they make us question everything, and they show us just how complicated people can be.
If you like this deep dive into the Chris Watts case and the whole mystery surrounding Nicole Kessinger, make sure you subscribe to the deep dive for more. We'll be back with another one soon.